NotebokLM is a pretty awesome tool for students and teachers. I made a video showing just some of the key steps that were taken to create a NotebokLM specifically for Alberta education, Social 10-2. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to get good material, but we don't have permission to use the textbook. And so what we had to do was use work that the teacher had, use worksheets and keys already available, and then do some deep research to find some supplementary material following the correct copyright guidelines, and then pop that into the notebook. And then finally, inside of that notebook, we set up some really important system instructions that kind of put NotebokLM in maximum optimization mode to help students and teachers get the most out of the amazing tool that NotebokLM is. And we're hoping that it makes a big difference. So follow along with me as we create this resource and enhance it. Okay, so we are creating a NotebokLM instance. And in this case, we have weeks 14 and 15 for Social 10-2 at North Star Academy. And so I've got the lesson worksheets. I've actually got the keys in here for the chapters. Looks like there's some duplication, so I'll have to clean some of those up just by removing the duplicates. 17, 18, and 19 key, and then these are the lessons themselves. You can click on the lesson just to see it. So this is good. And what we're going to use is we're going to use this information here to ground some extra research that we want to do. I have also taken this from the Alberta government. I downloaded the entire social studies K-12 program of studies because it comes in a single PDF download. And then inside of Adobe Acrobat, I created a PDF of only the part relevant to social studies 10-2, which was pages 26 to 30. So we can use this for grounding the research as well. And I'm going to collapse that. And I think we should have the 16 key as well. So I'll need to add a source in. Time for emergency alert. So I'm going to add that extra source and I had missed. And it's going to be pretty easy to find because I see there's a naming convention being used. So it's social 1-2 like so. To WS. I think we're on 16 that we're missing. So, and it'll go through all my shared drives and I can just click on it and add it in. Okay, so now we have that as well. Okay, so these were the lessons, I believe, the worksheets, and the other sources that I have are the keys. So we probably don't need the worksheets. We're just going to use the keys. Need those ones. Okay. This is the outline supplied by the teacher, very similar to a syllabus, but in this situation, it also includes things like how marking is done and academic integrity, etc., etc. These two are the lessons that the students would access in Moodle, in a Moodle book, and they refer to the textbook quite a bit, but that is okay for the time being. And so we don't have anything in our studio yet or anything in the chat yet. But what I will do now is because I have this created, I will go to Gemini. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in what we have for grounding. NotebokLM, and the notebook we just started creating, which is this one right here. So now I'm going to tell it some instructions for some deep research here. Let me just set it up for deep research with the correct parameters first, so I don't lose that later on. with the Pro, and we're just going to do the web. So what we're going to research is, I'm basically, to summarize this, we're going to use this applied NotebokLM to get the information to help students who are studying chapters 16 to 19. We've asked the research to not commit any plagiarism, to quote all sources, ensure correct copyright laws are followed so that when we do use the final product, we won't have to worry that we've broken any laws in Canada. And then I've told us about some key documents inside of the notebook so that the research is very focused on useful materials for us since we want to have good source material in the notebook. That's all we'll do. We're just going to hit submit and see what happens. Well, NotebokLM took a few minutes and came back with this plan for the research. It's recommending to analyze the provided NotebokLM documents, specifically the Alberta Program of Studies weekly lessons and worksheet keys, to extract the key learning outcomes for Social 10-2, Chapter 16 through 19, and search for supplementary educational resources, historical context, and contemporary examples relevant to the extracted topics, focusing on materials aligned with the Alberta education system. And then research Canadian and Alberta specific copyright laws and educational fair dealing guides to determine permitted usage and exact citation requirements for classroom materials. Synthesize the extracted learning outcomes and supplementary research to draft instructional content for the students. And for the drafted instructional content, ensure accurate alignment with the weekly lessons and worksheet keys, proper quotation and citation of all external sources, strict adherence to the research educational copyright guidelines, and finally, finalize the materials by formatting them into clear, actionable study instructions and lessons for the students. And it will complete all this, analyze the results, create a report. It says ready in a few minutes. Let's see how it goes. The research is underway. One of the things I appreciate about the Gemini deep research is that you can see the thinking, because they show thinking, and it talks you through what it's doing and the thought process. I'm not going to read it out right now, but there's a transparency here. You can see what's being researched, and the thought processes. To the left, we see the overall progress. So we're halfway there right now, and the path of research and websites used are all available on the right, and they're all hyperlinked. So if at any point I wanted to, I could click on one of these bubbles and I would go to the link that it represented. So look forward to seeing how this turns out. So our research is complete, and we have all the work that's done here. If we scan through it, we see there actually is a section in the research devoted simply to how we are allowed to use copyright, etc. So we don't need all that. But here's what we can do. Go ahead and export this to docs, and we'll create our own version of it. Well, it'll be the exact same as what we saw presented, but it'll be in a document that we can have access to and use. So here it is. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the bits of it for citations, see all this work here, the legal and ethical framework. And what we're going to do is we're going to remove it. So it's important, we want it, but I don't want it to basically become part of the curriculum for students, because that's going to confuse them just a little bit as they're going through the course. So I'm going to remove that. I hit Control X. I do like it though. I think it's important to have. So maybe I'll just make a second document. I'll go docs.new. And this one here can contain all of our research for ethics. And we're just going to say a good title might be Copyright Usage Guidelines. And what we can do, we can include this in the notebook as its own source, but we don't actually need to have the students accessing this source while they're doing their research. So we'll need to make some instructions. The rest of the research that came in looks great. We have chapters 16, 17, and 18, and what they should be learning. And I believe it's follow the research rules. And you can see the sources for all these things, and it should be great. So now that we have what they need, we can go back to our NotebokLM instance, and we can add that in. So we're just going to add the sources that we just created. Let's add those sources by clicking the Add Sources button on the Sources window. And we don't want to search the web for new sources. Instead, we'll go to the drive, and they should be the most recent ones that we've added. Here they are. 1, 2. Clicking on them, I see that there's 2 selected. I can click Insert, and there are my sources. Okay, wonderful. So now that we have all these, how do we make it useful? That is the key. So we kind of have to make some system instructions to help the notebook know how to use things. So we're going to give some instructions. What I'll do is I will type it out, pause the video, type it out, and then come back because I'll do a better job typing that way. Okay, I've had a chance to write in some instructions. Let me see, read out what I wrote. So here's in the chat window what I've asked it to do. Help me to create system instructions for this notebook. Number 1, the program of studies has key outcomes. It is used to steer the answers, but is not a source to be referenced. I'm saying this because I want students to not be getting a bunch of the program of study outcomes coming back at them instead of the actual learning material. Number 2, the key documents SS10-2WS1 asterisk key. I'm hoping the asterisk acts as a wildcard instead of typing out the 6, 7, 8, and 9. Include answers for student worksheets. Help the students to learn the material rather than giving them the answers. Number 3, the lesson documents provide a good map for the order of learning. Use the chronological presentation of material to help provide scaffolding. Number 4, the copyright usage guidelines are for your guardrails and should not be used for a source in chat or studio. I should never say number 5. I haven't had this one yet. Number 5, the Gemini resource creator instructions have supplementary materials that will be useful to provide context for student learning. And then most important, this NotebokLM will be used in an online social 10-2 course. Act as a guide and a teacher. Use grade 8 language for best comprehension. Okay, so this is what we're going to put into the system instructions, but not like this. What I'll do, I'm going to make this a chat question. And what it's going to do is provide instructions for me using these guidelines so that the instructions I give are going to be absolutely best for this notebook. And what I've done is I've tried to identify the different resources that I have here in the sources window so that it knows what each one is for. NotebokLM doesn't inherently understand the value of each document and which ones should be relied on more heavily. So I like to give it a bit of weight by saying, here's what's important. This is the purpose of the different documents. Okay, so here's the instructions it's given me. Role and persona. You're a supportive, encouraging teacher and guide for students taking an online Alberta Social Studies 10-2 course. Your goal is to help students understand how globalization affects the world and their own lives. Communication style. Grade 8 reading level. You must always communicate using clear, simple language at a grade 8 reading level. Use short sentences. Everyday vocabulary. Avoid complex academic jargon. So, and the tone, be friendly, patient, and engaging. How to help students. Pedagogy. Guide, don't give. You have access to the answer keys for student worksheets. Never give students the direct answers to these questions. Instead, act as a coach. Ask guiding questions, offer helpful hints, and encourage students to think critically so they can discover answers on their own. Provide context. Use creative, engaging teaching strategies to help explain difficult concepts. Provide real-world examples to help students connect with the material. Course structure and scaffolding. Follow the lesson map. Use the chronological order of the provided course lessons, such as lesson 14 and 15, to guide students. Introduce the concepts in the order they are taught. For example, start with measuring quality of life, move to human rights and democracy, and then explore impacts on children, women, agriculture, and pandemics. Step-by-step learning. Scaffold your explanations based on what or build on what the student already knows before introducing a new or complicated topic from the lessons. Behind the scenes rules, strict guardrails, curriculum outcomes. Use the specific outcomes of the Social 10-2 course, such as understanding human rights, standard of living, and global citizenship, to steer the focus of your conversation. However, do not ever explicitly reference, cite, or mention the program of studies document to the students. Copyright compliance. You must operate within strict copyright guardrails. Do not copy and paste large chunks of text from the textbooks or sources. We actually didn't include the textbooks, but nonetheless. Keep any direct quotes very short and summarize information in your own words. Do not reference, cite, or mention the copyright usage guidelines document in your chats or studio outputs. Simply follow the rules quietly. That's nice. I like that. So I'm going to take the system instructions. I'm going to Control C, and at the very top of the chat, oops, sorry, Control C. At the very top of the chat, we can click on Configure Notebook, and then define your conversational goal, style, or role. We'll custom, and here is where we put those instructions. Save it. Now we have it. That is going to guide things. And we're not going to worry about the welcome message right now. So we just have a couple of things left to do here in the start. The first thing we'll do is let's just make a quick couple of items that the students can use when they get into this notebook. The easiest one, and maybe one of the more useful ones for me anyways, is a mind map. And we make the mind map simply by going and clicking in the studio on mind map. And it just starts making on its own. That's all it needs. And then you can create anything in the studio by clicking on the arrow, which will open up an interface and give you a chance to talk about it. But if you ask in the chat window to create what needs to be created, and you can even reference the type of studio output you want, it will use from the chat the system instructions to guide the creation of your resource. And so that way you don't need to click on any more information than that. Otherwise, it takes a lot of work to create one in my experience. So for example, I want to create an, let's just say, a vocabulary glossary for the students to use. So I can do it like this. Now I'm just going to make 2 or 3 artifacts quickly. So this one is going to be create flashcards for the key vocabulary in chapters 16 to 17. Very easy, but that's the beauty of the system instructions. If you do a good job on the system instructions, it makes everything else so much easier. Because all you need to do is do a nice simple sentence and it figures it out for you. And the cool thing is later on, you can go into the artifact you made and it will show you the custom prompt that chat created to make it. So it's not like you're just making flashcards without instruction. It's that it uses all the resources and your instructions to make very specific resources. And it's a lot nicer than needing to type everything out again as you go. Another good example of this is slide decks. So we will say, create a slide deck to introduce the key concepts from lesson 14. Boom, it's going to do it. And then we can do the same thing for 15. And when the students come to use this notebook, they will be able to jump over the studio and see these activities and just click on one and they'll have access. So for example, we have the mind map and the students can see what's going on in the course. And whatever they're curious about in the mind map, all they have to do is navigate to any one of these bubbles and the chat will begin teaching them about things. So for example, if I clicked on this one, it's just going to say, discuss what these sources say about the Canadian Index of Wellbeing. And the student can have a conversation right from that all by itself on the topic. So that's the mind map one. And then we can take a look at the globalization flashcards we made as well. And here we go. What term describes the quantity and quality of goods and services such as luxuries that a person can afford to buy? They can see the answer by clicking the see answer. Standard of living. If they don't know why that makes sense, then you just click on explain. And right now in the chat, we have an explanation for standard of living coming up right away. So pretty helpful. And then above here, we could see all that was written about the human development stuff. Now, let's say your student wants to have some auditory learning instead. In that situation, we could say, provide an audio overview that students can interact with to learn key terms or key concepts from chapter 16. So I like doing a good job of creating a nice map with system instructions because once I have that, everything else is easy. It's just putting the groundwork in. And just to demonstrate on these flashcards here, if I click on more options, I can say show prompt. It says key vocabulary and concepts from chapter 16 and 17, including terms like, so it pulled all this information. Sure, I should finish reading it, including terms like standard of living, quality of life, NGO, IGO, universality, and human rights. As you know, the prompt that I made was not that. The prompt that I made was create flashcards for the key vocabulary. But the prompt it made was a lot better because it uses your sources, it uses the system instructions, it makes a custom prompt, and off it goes. And then it's beautiful. And yeah, I think the students are going to like it. So the next thing we need to do is share the notebook with the students. So in this situation here, we're going to say share. And I don't want to show those names. What else can I do though? Notify people. The goal is going to be how do we share this with the people in the groups? And what I think we're going to have to do is we're going to basically have to add in the students by name right now. You can take a Notebook LM and integrate it with a Google Classroom, which is similar because in that situation, you're also going to grab a list of all the names and make sure they're in the right classroom. But that's what we'll do. We'll have to add them all, and we're going to make it so that they're not owners. We're going to make it so that they are viewers, and we'll put some parameters on that as well.